behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. That will be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. It is the Football University here with me, Matt Caddell, former Alabama wide receiver. And yes, RTR, Roll Tide Roll. Let's go. We got so much to talk about. Shouts out to get in the student section. We got this tonight is going to be one of the most epic shows ever. I got so much to say. We're going to talk about Alabama recapping the SEC championship, college football, playoff preview, NCAA news, SEC bowl game matchups. Of course, we like to end on the NFL, and let's get it rocking and rolling. Shouts out to, let's start in the student stage. I forgot to shout y'all out at the end of the show. Stephen Hicks, James Knox, RTR. Listen, Roll Tide to the Bama Nation. Shouts out to everybody. B. Jammin, Cindy Reed, Roll Tide, Roll Tide. Listen, we had a great Lori Caddell, RTR. Listen, we had an eventful weekend for everybody. But listen, we're going to talk about it first and foremost here, Football University. This was the show. We talk anything and everything football. Like I said, we cover everything football related and find a way to bring it back to Alabama. And yes, that great university, the University of Alabama. But first, before we get in our first topic, gotta shout out the Horsemen at Bam Damn Sports YouTube channel. Please hit them up on their YouTube channel. If you remember the Horsemen, listen, they always do a great job. Hit them up on Bam Damn YouTube channel and tell them Football University sent you. Yes, please look out those guys. They do a great job. Listen, we're here on CTS Sports Room. Listen, we got a lot of great things lined up, and thank you all to the student section for coming in. Let's get it started. Let's go. You see my level of excitement is on 10,000. Shouts out to Van Edwards says, I just hit the transfer portal. Yes, we're going to talk about NCAA transfer portal news. But first and foremost, let's get to the SEC championship recap. Shouts out to Cindy Reed is going to lead us off. Alabama Crimson Tide, Lord, the boom on UGA. So proud of our team. And let's go back to Saturday, Atlanta. Kind of a cloudy, rainy, muggy day, a little bit chilly. SEC championship, we said last week, I like how Alabama lines up against Georgia. Thought they matched up really well, and it showed. But in that game, I mean, it kicked off. Georgia drives down 7 points, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Georgia kind of had the momentum. But shouts out to Coach Saban, that coaching staff, the job that they did, the team having that Lank mentality, let all naysayers know. just how they came out and how, they fought through adversity, was able to come back with the score. I think with a touchdown. No, I think a field goal, then a touchdown. And it was kind of going back and forth. Defense was making plays. Defense had a first 4 down stops, couple 4 down stops versus Georgia. And then, we had the big touchdown with Burton before halftime. Alabama was up 17-10 at halftime. So it was a really hard fought game. Then come back. You knew Georgia was going to be fired up. Listen, Kirby always has his guys disciplined, all that good stuff. But listen, man, when I say in the third quarter, 20-10, Alabama got another field goal. Then Georgia started kind of getting things rocking and rolling. Alabama missed some opportunities, but they got the game within 23-27. 24-27, and they were within reach of a field goal. But shouts out to Jalen Miro. The last 2 drives, those were clutch drives that we needed. That drive where he just basically went 4 for 4 to Isaiah Bond. We kind of did a little wrinkles in the backfield, having him come out the backfield, really throwing off the Georgia defense. I think he went 4 for 4 and drove us key third downs, key clutch plays, and got us in the end zone to get to that 27th point. And, the defense, I thought they played a solid game. But at the end of the day, then the last drive, we were up and we were still, 2 minutes or so left. We did not want to give the ball back to Georgia, but we wanted to kind of take the air out the ball. He had that first big, long first down run on the QB keeper, which I thought was a great call by Tommy Reese. And then that other second down where he got 10 yards to kind of solidified the game. Georgia already called their last timeout, and we just took a knee and got the victory. We're grateful. Jubilation for all Bama Nation getting that win versus the Georgia Bulldogs in Atlanta for Alabama's 30th SEC title. That's what we do. We come ready to play and knocking off the number 1 team in the country, the most impressive win in the country. So I'm going to pause right there before I kind of break down offensively, defensively, special teams. Let's get in the student section. Let's see where y'all are rocking and rolling. Jeff Stapleton says, roll tide, man. Let's see. Listen, Jeff Stapleton says, awful about my voice between Alabama and the Niners. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk NFL news, especially about those 49ers going up against those Fly Eagles Fly, beating them yesterday. So my Alabama Crimson Tide 2023 SEC National Championship is soon, 2023 National Championship. And we're going to, speaking of championship, we're going to talk about that. I've been saying it the past couple weeks. Alabama's got to have the right mindset, the right mentality going into the game here. And luckily, we were able to get in the college football playoff. Controversial to some, but I get it. I understand it. I see all arguments, but I'm going to break down each argument that some of these talking heads are talking on about Alabama, and I don't think it's more so about Florida State not getting in. I think it's more so about them just hating Alabama football, and that's it. That's all they care about. So let's kind of get back to the game. Speaking of the SEC championship, let's talk about the defense. And I want to say that, things that kind of stood out for me versus Georgia, I felt like we controlled the game. I don't want to say we dominated. We were few minor details offensively, defensively from truly dominating the game, but we controlled the game. Offensive line did a great job. But I want to stay on the defensive side of the ball. The defense, I thought they played really well. Trezon Marshall played really well on some inside zone runs. The secondary came up. They were physical, made plays, tackling. They kind of held Bowers, McConkey in check for the most part. To me, Georgia looked like they weren't running their offense. It looked like they were trying to run plays that Alabama kind of normally runs. We shut down their running game, so shouts out to the front 7. Jaheim Otis, Lawson, Tim Keenan, Igboigbe, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. Those guys held Georgia's offensive running attack to 78 yards. Shouts out to them, Freddie Roach doing their thing, Cam Holster. So just shouts out the whole Alabama coaching staff. But I want to focus on the defense. I thought we did a pretty good job, holding them, containing them, their receivers, especially tight ends, Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey. Those guys are they keep fighting and fighting. Georgia's a resilient squad, nothing taken away from them, but they were almost, they had us on their heels, so we had to be that much more aggressive. But about the defense, we held them to 78 yards. They got a few passes here and there. But I want to talk about the opportunities that we missed and that we kind of need to, get back on the drawing board and work on these little things moving into the college football playoff. Guys, when I say we could have dominated them, we truly could have dominated just if we would have just had this one minute detail. Catch the ball. Listen, defensively, we dropped 4 picks. Yeah, we had the turnover, the fumble. Trezwan Marshall returns it, recovers the fumble, but we dropped 4 picks. I know Malachi Moore dropped the interception. Kool-Aid misjumped the interception. Trey Amos came in and did a valiant effort for Kool-Aid and dropped the interception. And I believe Christian Story dropped the interception. Those are 4 picks. Guys, if we catch those 4 picks, we are easily leaving. 4 times 3 is 12. We easily left 12 points on the board. Easily 9 to 12 points on the board. You had 12 points to that game. We easily beat Georgia by what? 14, 2 touchdowns. It's not even a game. Then people say, oh, Alabama dominated Georgia. So those are things we got to work on. Defensive secondary. We can't drop any more money. We got to catch these picks. Don't drop your money. A lot of these guys, the time is now. They're trying to make that transition to the NFL, put on great tape. Yeah, they show you how great your ball skills are and catch the money. We don't need to have any more drop passes moving forward. But yeah, defensively, I thought they played solid. But the drop interceptions to me, what really were really kind of stuck out for me on the defensive side. So let's take a pause before I go to, offensive and special teams. Let's get in the student section. I know y'all are rocking and rolling. Great comment here from Cindy Reed said, I agree, this team works together as a team. They're amazing. And that's one thing Coach Saban shouted them out. He said, listen, after the game, press conference said, this team is a team. They play for each other. They love each other. They hold each other accountable. It's truly a brotherhood. I heard Kool-Aid come out with a tweet today. He said, these aren't my teammates. These are my brothers. And when you have that type of camaraderie, that type of unification, that type of bond, that type of chemistry, this is what you call a true team. And so it's showed that ever since that Texas loss, winning 11 straight, sweeping the SEC West, I don't think that needs to go unmentioned. And, beating the number 1 team in the country in Georgia, in Atlanta for the SEC championship. So let's get to the Southern section. Van Edwards kind of talking about my point that I was mentioning earlier. I actually thought Amos had a more physical brand of playing corner than it was needed. It was needed that night. I agree, especially when Kool-Aid, Georgia kind of gets lucky. Georgia has gotten lucky the past couple national championships, SEC tournament championships. And I say they get lucky by the opposing team getting injured. You look at last year playing Ohio State. Ohio State was up, running them down them throats. And then what happens? Marvin Harrison Jr. gets injured. Okay. National championship, when they beat us, we were rocking and rolling. Bryce Young throws a pass to Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams gets injured. That changed the whole dynamic of the game. Then the SEC championship game, we won, but we lost. Who did we lose to? We lost Jonathan Mechie in that game. So we weren't the same team going into that national championship 2 years ago. And I feel like when Kool-Aid went down on that play, and, he got hit, I think, in the head by Dallas Turner. I was like, oh man, here goes Georgia with the lucky stuff. And I was like, you know what? Alabama's going to bounce back. I was fighting these negative thoughts about, the injury or whatnot. And luckily, Kool-Aid was in concussion protocol. But Dallas Turner was able to come back. But Trey Amos, I think Coach Saban, I think Coach Saban learned a lot about, having those key injuries in key positions, receiver, secondary. We got Trey Amos this year, and he played at an admirable position, a valiant position when Kool-Aid went down. As soon as Kool-Aid goes down, Mike Bobo, just like any good offensive coordinator, they're going to go after them. They went right at him with Brock Bowers. He has a great pass breakup. It doesn't come in. Then they try to attack him later with 86 Bell. He plays clinic tape coverage. I'm talking about, Coach Saban, T-Rob, they love the technique that he played. But he, played it, broke on the little out route, could have had a pick, dropped the pick. If he would have caught it, like I said earlier in my first point, defensively, we dropped 4 interceptions. Moving forward in this college football playoff, we cannot drop that money, especially going up against a team like Michigan, and possibly playing maybe a Texas or a Washington game in the national championship. But right now it's all about Michigan. But yeah, Trey Amos played valiantly. I thought he did an amazing job when Kool-Aid came in. I talked about him breaking up the pass versus Brock Bowers and Bell. So Trey Amos did his thing. Now, I want to shout out Marshall. I thought Trezron Marshall played a pretty good game, in my opinion. He had the fumble recovery going against his old former team. I feel like all the Georgia boys did really good. Trezron Marshall transfer, obviously Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond from Buford High School. Those guys were cooking, and you can tell it meant personal. But Trezron Marshall, for him, he had I saw a play where he actually blew up the offensive line and set him down, and, they weren't able to run the ball anymore. So, shouts out to those guys. But Trey Amos did his thing. So let's shift back. Let's go to a few comments. Let's see. Shouts out to Velma Stuttermeyer, Roll Tide. We did do that. But I know it's a lot of Michigan talk. Great comment right here. We're going to get on to it. I really feel after the SEC championship game, Bama's the team no one wants to play or replay. Bama just needs to keep working, improving. RTR, yeah, we got to keep improving. Like I said, defensively, I think overall as a whole, we got to take this time to get healthy, not lose our steps, continue to do different things, maybe add a little 4-quarter drill in this time off when they get practice. Like, work on those drills, getting healthy. I don't think that's going to do anything but help this team, the conditioning, being at peak performance going against Michigan. Excuse me. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a little 4-quarter drills going forward, kind of getting the guys back in shape, getting refocused, getting, no need to get complacent, no need to get satisfied. We got a lot of work to do. So I think that's something maybe Saban might add into it, but I would love to see kind of some type of group work, 4-quarter conditioning, kind of making sure we're hitting on all those small conditioning things, details that you have kind of in the season when you have we don't play the game in January 1st. So today's the 4th. So we probably got maybe 23, 24, 26 days or so from here before playoffs. So I wouldn't mind seeing us kind of keeping those things, playing at a high level, keeping that hunger, kind of keeping that staying in shape. With some 4-quarter type of things, not all the way 4-quarter, but some certain drills we can incorporate that way in the practice. That way we kind of keep stay locked in physically as well as mentally. So I talked about the defense things we need to improve on. talking about the interceptions, the picks. I want to talk about the offense. Let's talk about the offense. I thought, Milroe, he came, I mentioned earlier how he came up clutch. But, I do think we could do things to kind of, I thought maybe at the beginning of the game, he was pressing a little bit too hard. I don't know if it was just excitement or whatnot. He kind of missed some throws here and there, but he came through when times needed to happen. So just like Cindy Reed says, I knew Milroe could do it. Yeah, I'm confident in it. He's the leader. He's one of the permanent captains of this team. But yeah, Milroe, Georgia was doing a lot of things. They were double clutch. They were double spying him, so they had two linebackers on him at certain times of the game. But, things I think Milroe, just things we can help him, things he can improve on. I think we can incorporate a quick passing game and kind of get him settled, maybe do some screens, maybe do some quick passes. I know we were going against Georgia, but maybe kind of get him in the flow of the game. I felt like a lot of our passes we were trying to get him to do were deeper passes, more slow developing passes, especially, and I don't know if that was just a good balance at the beginning of the game. He wasn't at his best, but I don't know. Going against Georgia, who's one of the top defenses, a Kirby-led defense, you're not gonna have a lot of time to kind of get those slow developing routes. And I do think we just need to continue to run the ball. Offensively, we just got to run the ball. We got to establish those runs. I feel like at the beginning of the game, we could have just ran the ball. We didn't even have to throw a pass. A lot of times we were ahead of the sticks. We were in the 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2. We just need to continue to run the ball, pass when we need to, kind of get up a couple touchdowns here and there, then start passing it. But we do need to incorporate that quick passing game, a lot of different formations. I would love to see a little bit more pistol heavy, Kendrick Law, I formation. I feel like we could do a lot of things, just kind of confuse defenses, keeping them on the heels. Now, as far as Milroe, I think I mentioned earlier how we could use the quick passing game to kind of get him in more in rhythm earlier. And then coming with some of those longer developing plays. But I mentioned different formations and running the ball. But yeah, Milroe just continue. I don't want him to kind of, like I said, I would love to see some of the full quarter things. I think it's important that the players individually work on their craft. If I started seeing some video, guys like Kool-Aid, Malachi Moore still training, working on their technique. They probably won't have practice for another week or so. You got awards banquets, things of that nature. So you need to still work on the technique. Don't sit at home and just, eat Christmas cookies and milk and all that stuff and get out of shape. No, we got to continue to keep sharpening our iron, keep sharpening the tool, refining our tool. And that goes from everybody, not just Milroe. That's why I say we probably need to do some type of fourth quarter type of incorporations into practice, just kind of get the guys focused, keep it, stay keen, as they say. But Milroe, continue to work on his accuracy. Things I want Milroe to continue to work on. Let's see, I have it right here. Definitely is, I think he needs to continue to establish, and I'm talking about the offense, and I'm discussing Milroe. I mentioned the running game. And then I'm going to talk about our receivers. Milroe needs to continue to work on, accuracy. I think we can help him with the quick passing game. Always running the ball. We must run the ball. That's going to be important moving forward. And also, I think Milroe is important. He kind of reestablishes his rapport with his receivers and his tight ends. He's got a great rapport with Bond, Burton. It's good to see Prentice. I think Kobe Prentice could be huge for us moving forward offensively. But I still think it's important that, Milroe kind of reestablishes that rapport with the tight ends. We got to have that rapport with the tight ends, Nyblack, Dupree, all those guys, Robbie Oots, have that rapport kind of like we did. So these next couple of days, we need to be working individually. Hey, listen, let's work. While Michigan's going out, while Michigan, Texas, and Washington, all these other players are kind of taking time off. There's no time to take off. We got to work, work, work. This is the time you can separate yourself. This goes from Miro, defensively, everything. We got so much to work on. Alabama still hasn't put it together for 4 quarters yet. Played a great, solid game. This will be a good time to do it the next 2 weeks. So, next 2 games. So let's just focus on being 1-0. Let's continue to improve throughout the week. We can do things individually. So, Miro, I want him to continue to have that rapport to receivers catching the ball. We must run the ball, develop the quick passing game. And also, I think that I mentioned Kobe Prentice, and I think we need to work on somebody mentioned the 49ers earlier. Deebo Samuel had a big game. He had rushing touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, the guy's just unreal. We need to kind of work on that Kendrick Law package. Like, I would love to see him get some runs out of the backfield. Kind of just look at what Kyle Shanahan does with with Deebo Samuels, and kind of incorporate that into our passing game. Get him some quick passes and let our receivers try to work on some yak yards. And I don't know if y'all know what yak means. YAC, yards after catch. One thing I thought, listen, Georgia credits their defense. They were pretty they had really good coverage on our receivers, so it was really tight windows. So our receivers got to continue to work on separation and working on our yak. And I feel like with the quick passing games, mixing things up, having a Kendrick Law package, we can really work on some yak yards. And our receivers, that we're going to win a national championship, we got to be able to break tackles and get upfield and protect the ball. So those are some of my topics I wanted to discuss about, Miro, the quick passing game. We must run the ball. Establishing that rapport with our receivers having that yak mentality, breaking tackles, protecting the ball, and reestablishing the rapport with the tight end. So let's get to the student section. I know y'all are rocking and rolling. So Jeff Stapleton says Roll Tide. Cindy. Let's see. Shouts out to Justin Sumlin, my guy, is in the building. I see a lot of Michigan talk. This was a great comment right here. When they announced who Michigan players were playing, that it was Alabama, it got really quiet in there. They were like, oh, because they were looking for a cupcake for FSU. That's what it is. And I'm going to discuss this whole Florida State topic later, but I want to make sure I discuss the tie, because that's what we do here at Football University. Cindy Reed got receipts in the building. She said, do y'all know there's no dog trolls? They're hiding, laugh out loud, scratching them fleas. Yeah, we had a lot of dog talk the past couple of years, and this last show, one thing I learned the lesson the past couple of years is just having the spirit of humility, staying humble. You win, you won the SEC, but listen, job's not finished. Like Kobe says, Alabama's got to have that mindset. Michael Jordan, job's not finished. It's all about going and winning that championship and dominating. So, I live in Georgia, and I saw a lot of Georgia fans today, but it was hard to try to find them. I'm used to seeing Georgia memorabilia everywhere. It just wasn't there like I'm used to seeing it. But the ones that I did see, I was not being, boastful or braggadocious. Listen, I know what it's like to lose. Alabama has not been in the national championship the past 2 years. So, just staying humble, staying focused, low key. But things I am confident about is Alabama getting the playoff, and I will talk about that. So let's stay in the Stephen Hicks says, Michigan is shook having to face my Alabama Crimson Tide. Listen, they're going to have to we're going to have to come with it. Michigan's no pushover. Before I shouts out to Justin Sumlin, he says, listen, roll tide, roll length. It's all about letting all those naysayers know. That's kind of the mantra of this team. And I love at the end how like Terry and Arnold, they always try to get Coach Saban to say, naysayers and Lang, it's just like kind of a big deal. So I mentioned things we need to improve on. Defensively, we got to catch those picks. Offensively, Miro's got to continue to have that rapport with the receivers, tight ends. We got to continue to run the ball. I think we can really, looking at the 49ers, looking at what Kyle Shanahan does with Debo Samuels, I think we kind of incorporate that into our offense to kind of really help, throw some things out offensively going against, in this playoff the next couple of weeks that kind of really helps us, as a team to continue to improve. Now, I talked about special teams. Shouts out to Will Riker. Will Riker became the all-time leading scorer in college football with that field goal against Georgia. So I'm glad he kind of got that off, got over that hump, and he can just focus on winning special teams because special teams what won the game. Georgia's kicker missed it, and we made it. So I'm glad to see special teams. I thought the kickoff in the end zones were good. Punts were okay. The first punt by Burnett wasn't the best, but it took a great roll. So thank God for that. We just got to continue to improve special teams wise. It was good to see Downs back there. And I do think it's important we have Downs and Kool-Aid playing highly confident back there because we need to return when special teams punt return or kickoff return can be huge in these big games. So talked about offensive things we need to improve on defensively, special teams. I want to talk about players that got to step up. And I want to set it up like this. Players that must improve, for us to move forward. I mentioned, Kendrick Law, we need to kind of lean on him moving forward a little bit more. Kobe Prentice, I feel like he could be a weapon that's kind of untapped that we can really use. But I want to talk about players that kind of need to improve moving forward. And, I mentioned in the past, it was Trezor Marshall. Trezor Marshall, he probably had one of his better games versus Georgia. He needs to continue to build on that going into the playoffs. But players that I think that got to improve defensively, I'm gonna start with Jaden Key. I'm not the type, being a former player, to bash players, but I think he's got to improve. Play with a quicker step, hitching his step, in that safety position, because I feel like teams are attacking him, his side of the field, whenever he's on. We got Auburn. Auburn attacked him. So Jaden Key, we need him to improve, whether it's technique, his footwork, tackling. He still looks kind of nonchalant out there. I think he needs to play with a little bit more sense of urgency. But it's good. One thing about that, Devontae Smith is getting healthy. Christian Story, those two guys, Christian Story is coming on a lot. Excuse me. So I think that helps with the depth. And don't sleep on guys like Tony Mitchell, freshman coming in. So Jake Pope, Brayson Hubbard, those type of guys. But Jaden Key, listen, brother, we need you to improve just all around in your game. I don't know if you're still hurt or whatnot, but you have to improve in order for us to win that national championship. Because good teams like Jim Harbaugh, Sark, or Grubb, the offensive coordinator for Washington, they're going to look at that matchup and they're going to attack you often and often and consistently. So we need you to improve as well. Another player will need to improve offensively, going back to the receivers. And I know Georgia was playing tight coverage. That's why I said we got to continue to have that rapport, working on throwing routes each day with Miro, those type of things, script 707, whatever, on your own time. We got to keep it up. Malik Benson, I think Malik Benson, he was kind of taking a step forward, had a touchdown catch versus UTC, and had a big catch versus Auburn, kind of a yak play, caught the ball across the middle and kind of broke a few tackles, got an extra, plus 5 or 10 yards. And I know Georgia was playing tight coverage, but I felt like, he had his opportunity at the beginning, but then Kobe Prentice came in and really had that rapport offensively. So Malik Benson, we're going to need you to kind of, really get back in the lab, working on your routes, working on separation, working on catching the ball. Listen, when we're playing teams with tight coverage, we got to be able to get that separation even more so. And if the tight coverage, we got to extend those hands, catch those balls, have strong hands and don't let the defender knock the ball out. So Jaden Key, Malik Benson, those guys we're going to lean on. And another player, I don't think he's got to improve, but we need him to get back to being dominant like he was earlier in the season. That's 84 Not Black. Like I said earlier, him and Milrose got to continue to reestablish that rapport, having that, touch on working on different routes. That's why I think from here to, in all this spare time, we need to be working on 7-on-7, running routes daily with Miro. Miro needs to take ownership, and kind of reestablish that rapport with 84, with Dupree, with Benson, with Kobe Prentice. If they continue to put in the work, just imagine where our offense will be when we get back to practice. So those are the little things, like, don't have coach have to make you do it. You go be like, I talk about Kobe Bryant all the time. Reason why I love Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they were workaholics. They worked it on their craft nonstop. And that's what I want Miro on this team to do, because the prize is right there. We are 2 games away. Don't get satisfied. You want SEC, you're in the playoff. Oh, it's time to kind of relax. No, keep the foot on the gas. As everybody likes to say, stand on business. Stand on your business and get better at your business. Like, work on your craft. And those are things you can do. Getting in the lab with Not Black, getting in the lab, breaking down film. Listen, we should know anything and everything about Michigan's defense on our own. Which plays we need to do, which checks we need to do, all that good stuff. So those players, I think we need to lean on in order for us to need those guys to improve in order for us to move forward. So let's go to the student section. I know y'all are rocking and rolling. Ooh, sorry about that. Let's go. How do I get this off the screen? Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. 6-0, shouts out to 6-0. He says, neuter, they done. Brian Green, shouts out to Brian Green, says, Mutts are back on the porch. Oh my guys, we have even more to prove now. Got more doubters. Yeah, and let's kind of leads me into my next point. You do great, bring up a great point. I think if the balls were a little bit more accurate, they would have ate. But the balls that were, we gotta catch them. Like the one to Benson was there. I know the defender knocked it down, but don't let him knock it down. Like, we need to get a little bit more separation in our routes, continue working on our routes, foot drills, ladders, jugs machines, offensively and defensively. DBs, we dropped 4 picks. We cannot afford to drop 4 picks, because that could be a difference in the game. So yeah, we got a lot to improve on. That's why I say it's important in middle row take ownership and continue to build that rapport with with the receivers, with the tight ends, with the running backs. We've got to continue to improve. Just imagine we get better each day on their own, where we will be by the time we start practice. So that's my whole 2 cents. So let's see. Yeah, y'all are rocking and rolling. He's got to find. Van Over says, listen, I want Gary and David Pollard in the tag team versus Fireball and Danny Caddell. The winners will still be losers. I love it. Yeah, it's we got a lot of naysayers. Listen, let's talk about all the naysayers. So, Alabama wins the SEC, and I'll get back to some more about X's and O's, kind of leading into my next topic. So, Alabama wins the SEC, obviously has the best victory in college football, beating the number 1 team in the country. And so, we beat the number 1 team in the country, and immediately I was like, ooh, especially seeing Oregon lose to Washington again. I was like, that opened up a spot. And, let's talk about this college football playoff preview. So, Alabama wins. They have the best win. Oregon loses again to Washington. I was like, Oregon's out the race. So I was just thinking Texas is probably going to get in at 3, and Alabama definitely should get in. And I know we got a lot of FSU talk out here. So, somebody mentioned Danny Cannell, David Pollock, RG3, Booger McFarland was crying. I'm trying to think of who's all on that list. Was crying today and yesterday. Desmond Howard. All these former players are just like boo-hooing that Alabama got in the 4th spot. And I'm like, y'all didn't even care about Florida State before the game. Like, hey, and let's talk about it. So Alabama beats Georgia, beats the number 1 team in the country. And then so I'm going around flipping through the channels. Michigan's playing Iowa. It was kind of a okay game. Wasn't high scoring. Michigan ended up winning 26-0. But then I flip to the ACC, to the ACC championship. And oh my gosh, you talking about how boring this game was. And I want to address all the people saying, oh, Alabama should now have gotten in over Florida State. And listen, one of the criteria that is in the college football playoff committee is availability of key players. And everybody know that ever since Jordan Travis went down, Florida State has not been the same team. And I was saying, even when he was healthy, Florida State was not blowing out anybody. And they were playing mainly home games, whether it's Miami, Duke. They went on the road and beat Clemson. I think they had to go in overtime versus Clemson. Like, they were not blowing out these teams. And then with Florida State, their best win is LSU. That's the whole reason they are up there. Guess what? We beat LSU as well. So, I mean, what are you talking about? Yeah, you went undefeated and you in conference championship. It's only 4 spots. Like, let's be real. It's only 4 spots. You have Power 5, and people say, oh, you can't leave a Power 5 champion out. It's only 4 spots. They don't have a 5-team playoff. It is what it is. Somebody was going to get hurt. But look at who Florida State beat. Who is Florida State beating in the top 10? The reason Texas got in was because of how good Alabama finishes the season. Alabama beat the number 1 team in the country, and that just helps Texas's resume. They got in because of us. Florida State, your best win is LSU. Unfortunately, LSU did not help you in this situation. They got beat by us. They got beat by Ole Miss. Who else did they lose to? Well, they they lost to Florida State. Like, I'm sorry, your team did not help you. So I think a question that people don't want to ask is, who did they beat? Alabama beat Ole Miss. Alabama beat 4 teams Alabama played 5 teams in the top 25, went 4-1 with the only loss to Texas, who's probably the number 3 team in the country right now. So, I mean, I don't understand. Alabama beat the number 1 team in the country. Alabama beat Ole Miss. Alabama beat LSU, your best win. Alabama beat Tennessee, who's still ranked. Like, we have so many key victories, and I think that's one conversation that nobody's talking about. And to the Florida State fans who are just going up and on about what's going on. Oh, this is not fair. I'm sorry, life's not fair. It is what it is. Like, they have an obligation. And on the 13 committee, this is what I want Florida State fans to know. Are people who are – a lot of this is not people caring about Florida State. A lot of it's just people hating Alabama. That's what it boils down to. A lot of people are just hating that Alabama got in and not their team. And so I'm like, come on, people. People don't like Alabama anyway, so they're going to take any of their time to take shots at Alabama because, in the back of their mind, what's going to happen? Bama, Saban, we coming for that natty. At the end of the day, that's what you only hate teams that are doing, people that are doing successfully, So anyway, about Florida State and then about the committee, they're like, oh, the committee robbed Florida State. Do you not know on the 13 committee, 5 of them are from the ACC? Like, you got ACC connections from You got more ACC connections in the committee than the SEC representation. You only got 2 representation. And why are you just only mad at Alabama? Shouldn't you be mad at Texas? Texas got in at 3. Like, let's be real. Shouldn't you be mad at Michigan? Michigan has a cheating scandal going on, and nobody bats an eye because it's Michigan. It's not Alabama, but everybody has all the vitriol and hate towards Alabama because they hate Alabama. That's what it boils down to. And a lot of people just coming up with careless nonsense arguments that has nothing to do with Florida State. They just want to hate on Alabama and then hate on the SEC. Like, let's just be real. Say you don't like Alabama. Just say, I don't like Alabama. I don't want them in the playoffs. Just say that. Don't try to hide behind, Florida State should have been in. No. Florida State, they had 5 ACC committee members. Coach Grove, former Wake Forest head coach, was in the ACC. And I got, I know I sound passionate, but this has just been kind of irking me all day. And you know what turned off the committee to Florida State? That brutal watch of them playing Louisville. It was just ugly. Great comment here. Now, what hurt Florida State is their backup quarterback play. It wasn't until the ACC, and this is from a report from some reporter, I don't know if it's ESPN, and it says it wasn't until the ACC championship game that began to unfold that the members' opinions began to truly shape. They saw how the Florida State Seminoles struggled to get a first down in the first half versus Louisville. Like, that game was a snooze fest. Like, that's when they were like, you cannot look at Florida State after Alabama just beat the number 1 team in the country and say, man, this Florida State team is the best team in the country. No, it's not. You got to look at the eye test. You got to look at the resume. Who have they beat? Like, that goes back to my original point. Who have they beat? Like, a lot of y'all are just in your feelings because it's Alabama. Just come out and say you don't like Alabama. You don't want Alabama in there. Just say that. But when you break it down, you know way you watched that game and was like, man, this Florida State team's going to, man, I'm telling you, they're gonna beat they're gonna beat Michigan, or they're gonna beat Washington or Texas. No, that never crossed your mind. You wouldn't even think. Nobody even watched the ACC championship because it was such a snooze fest. I tried to watch it and it was so brutal. I was like, really, this is not good. And like, I would be interested to see the ratings, but because of the outcry, it's not going to match up today with the viewership of that game because it was such a bad game. So I just had to talk about that. And the committee saw that. Like I said, the committee has 5 ACC members on there with ACC connections. Even Boo Carrigan has ACC connections. These guys watch football, and there's no way you can watch Alabama beat Georgia, number 1 team in the country, and then watch Florida State struggle. I'm talking about struggle, and Louisville is just not good. And so then to my next point, everybody wants to talk about, Alabama losses. Alabama barely beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. A, you never played in the Iron Bowl. You don't know how hard it is to win in Jordan-Hare. And B, let's talk about Florida State wins. Do you not know when they lost Jordan Travis to North Alabama, they were down 13-0 at home, but nobody talks about it. Oh, no, nobody want to talk about it. Like, let's be real. Florida State, I don't think now, granted, I'm going to give Florida State the flowers. They got a really good defense. Now, they got a championship level defense, but offensively, when Jordan Travis went down, that hurt them. But they were down 13-0 to North Alabama. But you're not going to hear anybody talk about it. All they're going to hear is about Alabama because people hate Alabama. Like, let's just be real. Don't try to hide behind the Florida State bandwagon. No, people hate Alabama, and they just mad Alabama got in. And guess what? My last point. If Georgia wins, guess what? Florida State's still not getting in. So who are you going to take out? You're not taking Georgia out. You're not taking Washington out. You're not taking Texas out. Florida State's still not getting it. Like, I mean, let's just be real. Like, so, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. But when things are even, you had Georgia, Florida State, and Alabama head to head. You look at Florida State, their best win is LSU. Strength of record, I don't know what strength of record is. Their best win is LSU, Louisville. They won an ACC championship. You look at Georgia. Georgia, two-time back-to-back national championship, won 29 games. They only had their one loss in the SEC championship to Alabama. Committee said they value head-to-head. So Alabama beat Georgia. That knocks him out. So when you compare Florida State to Alabama, Alabama just beat the number one team. They got 4 or 5 top 25 wins compared to Florida State's. They only have 1, 2 maybe. Like, and their common opponent, they beat LSU. We beat LSU. So I'm not understanding what they are so upset about. And I told you they got 5 ACC members in there anyway. A lot of this stuff is just people hate Alabama. They are mad that Alabama got in. They're trying to hide behind this whole mantra of Florida State. Oh, we need to look at all this stuff. No, the committee has it written in their bylaws. If there's a key player out, they watch football too. They're like, nobody's picking Florida State to win. They learned their lesson last year with TCU. Like, TCU lost their championship game. Alabama was sitting there right at 6 or 5, but did they want to put Alabama in? No, they went with TCU, and it hurt them. They didn't have the 4 best teams because you and easily put Alabama in there. Alabama versus Michigan, like that is a totally different thing. So I just had to get that off my chest regarding this whole Florida State issue. But so yeah, I'm sorry guys. I just had to get that off my chest. I was just seeing so much vitriol coming towards Alabama and all this love for Florida State when a lot of these talking heads don't even care about Florida State. If you cared about them, you would have watched their viewership on the game Friday. And if you would have watched the game Saturday, you would have been like, look, this is brutal. But the committee did. They saw it's no way you can watch Alabama be dominant for 11 straight weeks, beat the number one team in the country and say, man, watch Florida State barely get a first down in the first half. What, the game was 3-6? Really? Come on now. Like, come on, guys. Put on football. Take the Alabama hate out your heart and just look at football. I know I'm getting passionate, but like, let's just be real. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just so many factors that they're not looking into, but they just have so much hate towards Alabama. So let's get to the student section. I know y'all are rocking and rolling. Yeah, Jeff Stapleton says, yeah, TCU games lowest viewership in college football. They put TCU in there because they didn't want to put Alabama in, and it hurt them in the long run. And I'm like, Florida State fans, if Georgia wins, you're still not getting in. That's what I don't think they understand. You're still not getting in. Like, Texas is getting that spot because Texas has a better win versus us. Like, the reason Texas got in because of Alabama's success. Now, if LSU hadn't been successful, like if Florida State would have beat LSU, LSU was, knocking on the door, won the SEC West, was undefeated, won the SEC championship, then you have an argument because you're saying, listen, I beat the top team, but you just can't say, man, they beat LSU. We're going to put them up. No. So I'm sorry. I just had to get that off my chest. Stephen Hicks says UGA will show FSU why they didn't get in. Listen, it's just great comment here. So, Alabama gets in, we get to play the matchup with Michigan, and it kind of went viral when I think they got it right. I think the committee got it right. I said last week, I feel like the committee would have to eat their own words. And they did. They just went with the 4 best teams at that moment who had the best resume. Alabama had probably a better resume than Texas, but they put Texas in front of us. And Florida State, I want to, Mike Norvell, I think Florida State's got the right coach. It's just unfortunate that ACC was a down read, and a lot of people like Richard Sherman trying to say, "Oh, the SEC was 7-9 out of conference." Da, 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 da. What's the ACC's record? Like, let's be real. Who did they beat? Like, let's compare apples. Let's compare how many people they got in the top 25. Let's be real. You take their two champions. You take Louisville and Florida State and line them up against Alabama and Georgia and see what happens. You take Louisville and Florida State and line them up against Washington and Oregon and see what happens. You take Louisville and Florida State and line them up against Michigan, and you can probably line them up with Iowa, or it just don't make any sense. So I just don't get it. So Mr. Jones says Craig is Bama, Texas with Debo. You know what happens next. Like, you know what happened is somebody says Texas will smoke Washington. That's going to be an interesting game. But I want to talk about Alabama and Michigan. So, Alabama gets in the playoff. I was so glad we got in. I was just like, thank you, God. Hallelujah. We get in. We played Michigan, but Michigan was not feeling the same way because Michigan thought they were going to get a free win going against Florida State and have this easy road. But I'm like, where's all the vitriol from? Could you imagine if Alabama had this type of cheating scandal and your AD is on the competition committee? They would be calling for heads as much hate as Alabama gets. Like, it's just so many unbiased. A lot of this boils down to people just don't like Alabama. And that's what I love being about Alabama. I feel like I bleed crimson because it's always Bama against the world, even in the SEC. And I know everybody likes to talk about SEC. Georgia fans don't like Alabama. Auburn fans don't like Alabama. Like, let's be real. LSU fans don't like Alabama. Tennessee fans don't like Alabama. It's all about Alabama at the end of the day. So it's like RTR. Like, I'm just sorry. Like, it just is what it is. So we played Michigan. We got a lot to work on Michigan. I told you the things we got to do offensively, defensively, special teams wise. Just initial thoughts. JJ McCarthy, the quarterback. He can do a lot of things. Got to stop Corum, the running back. They're pretty solid up front, offensively, defensively in the trenches. They got a few playmakers on the outside, but I think Jim Harbaugh learned what he kind of losing to TCU last year, getting caught off guard, whether they didn't have the signals or the cheat sheet or whatever. I think we got to be prepared for a different type of offense that they're going to try to throw at us. Not just trying to run the ball like they did versus Iowa. I think they're going to try to open it up a little bit more. I think they're going to try to do more QB runs. J.J. McCarthy's a pretty athletic quarterback. So those are different type of things, but I think we'll be locked and loaded. So somebody says maybe Georgia should spot FSU 14 points. I mean, let's be real, man. And, that's what I'm saying. It's just a lot of Bama haters, SEC haters on social platforms, gaslighting. Bama's always will be the standard. And Alabama, Tyler Burger they reestablished the standard Saturday. And Alabama, the crazy thing, Alabama hadn't even put it together for 4 quarters yet. Alabama still hasn't put together a complete game. So we got Michigan, Texas players, Washington, Sark, we already know what he likes to do, stretching the formation. So those are some of the things. We got to be able to stretch teams in formations offensively, and we got to be able to defend these stretch formations. If once we get past Michigan, we got to be able to defend these things. So let's get to the student section. Y'all got me fired up. Yeah, it's lonely at the top. Nobody's built for it. It's Saban is the GOAT because he makes the standard, not copies it. Hot size, not it's the standard. Yeah, and so another breaking news, we were talking about Milroe. I thought Milroe would have had a better game. He played a probably C+ game versus Georgia, but still got the MVP, still got us the win. So I think Milroe has a lot to improve, but I think they kind of kept him out of the Heisman race. Breaking news, Heisman finalists. Jay Daniels, who I think is going to win it. Bo Nix is in there. Michael Penix. and Marvin Harrison Jr., which I get it. The Big Ten, they want to have somebody in there. I think that's more of a spot holder role. Me personally, I think they're going to try to give the Biletnikoff to Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the best receiver is Neighbors from LSU. Statistically, he has more numbers. He has more catches, more touchdowns than Marvin Harrison. But, they might try to give it to Marvin Harrison Jr. because, it's a big name, Ohio State, Big Ten. I'm just letting y'all know what it is. Shouts out to Andrea. She says 50, Missouri beats Ohio State. Yes, transfer portal news. I mean, Ohio State lost like 8 players already in the transfer portal. McCord, their starting quarterback, I guess he was saying he was getting bullied by Buckeye fans. They lost in a total, let's see, Buckeyes lost Julian Fielding, former receiver, 5-star receiver, Kyle McCord, running back, Evan Pryor, Martin. They lost like 9, 10 players in the transfer portal. So yeah, it is what it is. Wouldn't be surprised you hear a few names coming to Tuscaloosa from College Station. That's what I'm just going to leave it at that. So let's see. Caleb Downs, freshman of the year in the SEC. Shouts out to Caleb Downs, newcomer of the year in the SEC. He proved it this year. Just unreal. The talent that he did this year. We had some first team. Speaking of portal dudes, Tyler Buckner got into the transfer portal, but get this, he got in the transfer portal for lacrosse, which is interesting. So I think he's going to laser report out rate. He's going to stay throughout the rest of the season, but I guess going to have opportunity to play lacrosse somewhere, which is interesting. So that brings me to, excuse me, y'all got me ripping and rolling. We're going to go rapid fire here. Brings me to my next topic, and I got to talk. I talk college football playoff. I talk Bama, Michigan, everything. Bama's got to have the right mindset. MJ, Kobe, jobs not finished. Continue to have that hunger, desire. I want to talk about Coach Saban versus Kirby, and I feel like a big changing point in the game was when Coach Saban was kind of being more aggressive than Kirby. That last drive before halftime, Alabama was kind of going, not necessarily taking the air out of the ball. Kirby was trying to call timeouts. And so since Kirby called timeout, Coach Saban said, okay, we're going to go for it. I think they went for it on like a 4th down, really aggressive play calling, got it in, eventually hit Burton on the touchdown. But I really love the aggressive nature of Coach Saban, keeping that foot on their gas versus Kirby. And I want to talk NFL. I mentioned kind of how, the 49ers had the big win. Shouts out to all the 49er Nation. Had the big win versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Alabama can kind of use that as a model if they have the opportunity to go against Texas, playing in Houston. We can use that as a model to kind of take it to those guys, and be dominant. Scored 6 touchdown drives with Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuels. I mean, the whole 9, Christian McCaffrey. So those are some things. And speaking of the Niners, speaking of the NFL and Alabama, I want to talk about let's talk about the Eagles. How about Jordan Davis and all these Georgia players having to come to the game and all this Alabama gear? Because Philadelphia Eagles got so many Georgia and Alabama players on there. I thought that was cool. But I want to shout out D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans doing a great job. Listen, I'm quite sure when Saban retires 10, 15 years from now, I think Saban's going to pick his predecessor, and I wouldn't be surprised that first phone call goes to D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans should be up for NFL Coach of the Year. He's got the Houston Texans 7-5, but listen, Will Anderson put it on an absolute clinic versus the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, Sean Payton. We know how great Pat Surtain Jr. is on that defense. Kareem Jackson. But Will Anderson, his stat line, he had 2 sacks yesterday, pass deflection that was for an interception, and he blocked, I think he tipped the punt. So Will Anderson doing his thing on the defensive end. So I want to shout out those. And listen, the Miami Dolphins, shouts out to the Dolphins, had a big win versus the Commanders. Tua, Tyreek, unreal. Mike McDaniels, they're number one in the AFC, special with Kansas City Chiefs losing. In the NFC, you got the Eagles still number one, but San Francisco 49ers coming up. Eagles got a tough road. They got the Cowboys coming up, and I forgot who their next opponent. They lose to the Cowboys. I think it's maybe like a three-way tie between them, Niners, and Eagles. So want to talk about that. MVP race. I believe the odds, I think I mentioned last week how right now I believe Brock Purdy might have the best odds. Jalen Hurts kind of number two. Dak Prescott's making some noise. Tua talking about Lord coming in at number four, and then Lamar, and then Patrick Mahomes. Still a lot of football to be played, but I just want to shout out the two Alabama guys, Hurts, Tua. I think Tua is kind of more on the higher end than what, you know, this sports book is saying, but want to shout out them. So Nick Saban G says, breaking news, Bo Nix is eligible for 2 more seasons. That is so crazy. Listen, we're going to talk about the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal is just free agency. Coach Saban tried to let people know about it 2-3 years ago, and people got on to Saban about it. So it is what it is. But listen, shouts out to the student section. You guys are the real deal. Yeah, that shovel pass to Bond was huge to keep the chains moving. So yeah, shouts out to the student section. Y'all are the best fans. Shouts out to Dick Saban Jr., Sports Talk TV, B Jammin, the artist formerly known as Van Hours, Justin Summerlin, Jeff Stapleton, Linda P, Cindy Reed, Andrew Ash, Jason Bernard. Let's see. 6-0, Stephen Hicks, Linda P, Velma Stuttermeyer, Lori Caddell, Crimson Kings. Let's see. Y'all are just Brittany B. Y'all are just the best friends in the game. Jeff Roy, Mr. Jones. Like, listen, come back next Monday, same time, same channel here on the CTS Sports Room, where we talk more football, more football talk. We're going to dive into the X's and O's for Alabama, Michigan, transfer portal news, coaching hires for other teams, the recruiting. I think signing day is going to be coming up. Who's going to be joining Alabama? We got a lot to discuss. So in the meantime, as I always say, enjoy football throughout this week. We got a lot. Alabama's off, so we can kind of, watch some NFL or whatever. I think the Army-Navy's game this is Saturday, so that's pretty big. So enjoy football. Let's be ready to talk about it here on the same channel on the CTS Sports Room here at Football University with me, Matt Caddell. Have a good one.